Following 2 days of meetings with President Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris, and a speech to Congress, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is in South Florida right now. The Israeli leader arriving at former President Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate moments ago. It is Netanyahu's first face-to-face sit-down with the current Republican presidential nominee since Trump left office in 2020. You may remember the two had a falling out when Netanyahu congratulated President Biden for his election victory that year. NewsNation correspondent Brooke Schaefer live for us in Palm Beach. Brooke, what is happening where you are?
Well, Natasha, that meeting between the two, between Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, former President Donald Trump, happening as we speak. Moments ago, as you mentioned, we saw the motorcade go by us here. The Israeli Prime Minister arriving at the former president's Florida home. Moments ago, we've also seen some video of the former president welcoming the Israeli Prime Minister to his home here with a handshake. This a high-stakes conversation between the two. They are expected, of course, to talk about the war in Gaza, peace in the Middle East. We anticipate the former president to reiterate what he has said in recent interviews and at some of his rallies, that it's time for a quick end to the war and the return of the hostages. As you mentioned, Natasha, this meeting, their first in nearly 4 years after their fallout in 2020. Earlier this morning, I spoke with a former Israeli government spokesperson about the reason for this meeting and what it says about the shift in their relationship.
I think it's definitely an attempt by the Prime Minister to repair bridges with former President Trump. There is so much in common in the agenda between the two leaders, given the great things that President Trump did with the Abraham Accords, and the Prime Minister wants to see that upgrade.
And this video you are seeing here, taken just moments ago, former President Trump again welcoming the Israeli Prime Minister here to his Florida home of Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach. Both Trump and Netanyahu, they each have something to gain from this meeting today. Mr. Trump looking to cast himself as an Israeli ally, someone still very much involved on the world stage, while the Prime Minister looks to repair his relationship with the former president, given the fact that Trump could once again become president of the United States. Again, this meeting, the first for the two since their fallout in 2020, a face-to-face meeting reportedly requested by the Israeli Prime Minister. Natasha?
And Brooke, meanwhile, I know we're also learning more about Netanyahu's meetings with President Biden and then Vice President Harris. What do we know about that?
Yeah, there's new reporting today, Natasha, that suggests the Israeli Prime Minister was angered or bothered by some of the comments made by Vice President Harris after her meeting with him yesterday. The two met on Capitol Hill. They spoke for about 40 minutes. After that, the Vice President made some comments on camera where she took a much sharper tone, even than we've heard from President Biden. The Vice President called Hamas a brutal terrorist organization and said that Israel has a right to defend itself. But in her speech, she also expressed serious concern for the high death toll and the humanitarian crisis in Gaza.
And as I just told Prime Minister Netanyahu, it is time to get this deal done. So to everyone who has been calling for a ceasefire, and to everyone who yearns for peace, I see you and I hear you. Let's get the deal done so we can get a ceasefire to end the war. What has happened in Gaza over the past 9 months is devastating. The images of dead children and desperate, hungry people fleeing for safety, sometimes displaced for the second, third, or fourth time. We cannot look away in the face of these tragedies. We cannot allow ourselves to become numb to the suffering, and I will not be silent.
So in this new reporting today by Axios citing Israeli officials, they say that the Prime Minister was reportedly upset by those comments, concerned that the remarks could harm the negotiations over that ceasefire deal. The Vice President, though, for her part, calling her conversations with the Prime Minister, quote, frank and constructive.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.